All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
É muito bom que a gente realmente... A sequência está pausada. Vai tomar no cu. A gente realmente está jogando 2.
Stanley lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over him.
Faz todos os finais com o balde. Você tem todos os finais agora, mas agora com o balde.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply...
Eu adoro aquela... É aqui! Que saudade!
And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room?
Pra caralho!
Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket
O balde sabe muito, mano. O balde sabe muito, tá legal? Minha sala favorita.
Truly, being here with the bucket was a grand adventure.
É muito
Stanley
foda.
reflected on all they'd been through together. First, walking through the door on the right.
É verdade.
Then walking to the lounge, then arriving at the lounge.
É isso.
Journey, the bucket
Muito
had
foda. Muito foda essa aventura toda.
Perhaps this was where the bucket felt most truly at home.
Sim, aqui é
Here in
muito
the
bom.
employee lounge. Perhaps it's the only place a bucket can even feel at home.
Aqui é muito foda, mano.
Stanley decided to just give the bucket absolutely as much time as it needed to be in the lounge. Clearly, the bucket and the employee lounge shared a special connection.
Eu adorei que continua com os adesivos. A skin do balde continua assim. Ai, ai. Acho que chega. Vamos lá.
But finally, the bucket was done being in the lounge, and they took the first open door on their left to get back to business.
É.
No, said the bucket. Don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
Aí, eu tô seguindo o que o balde quer. Cuidado, não minta. Se você tá mentindo agora, para. Ele fala, pô.
Good. Oh, well, look who's got cold feet. Well, from here, it looks like the only way forward is down, since the lift won't be coming back, but that's okay. You've got a bucket.
Yep.
Did you know that buckets are routinely used as cushioning devices? It's true. You can fall on a bucket from literally any height and survive.
Sério? Sério?
I'm serious, Stanley. Jump. Jump with the bucket. I promise you'll live. I extra double promise that you can land on the bucket and not die.
Caralho. Sério? Eita. Olha o que tem ali!
Another miniature
Oh!
Stanley figurine. This, you know, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini stands? Stanley figs? Or what about Stanlerines? Yes. I think I like
Estatueta.
that. Another Stanlerine under your belt.
Boa. Mas espera, o que é aquele buraco? Nossa, que passagem horrorosa. O que é aqui? Eu já fui aqui. O que é aqui? Não sei se eu já fui nisso aqui no normal. Estatueta. Não lembro. Balde, me ajuda. Fica comigo. Um monte de fita.
Okay, this is day number
Meu, narrador.
295. Take number... I don't even know. I've lost track. Nothing feels real anymore.
Evidência.
The longer I study this bucket, the less sense anything makes. The sheer euphoria I feel every time I pick it up. No matter how many times I've done it, it's always the same feeling. And the emptiness in my chest when I set it down. It
O
doesn't
balde, ele traz uma alegria muito
sense.
forte.
There's no
Mas quando você não tá com o balde, é horrível.
I still haven't figured out why I see the world so differently when this bucket is in my arms. Why everything feels so... What do I do with this treasure?
Eita porra, mano.
I can monetize it.
Ei. Eixe.
It's unthinkable the amounts of money people will pay for even just an hour with the bucket.
Eixe.
This is my golden ticket. But I have to be careful, because as soon as this gets out, there's going to be a target on my back. Even now, I don't know who might be trying to get...
Tá porra.
What's that? Who's there?
Ih, caralho. Que? Mano, eu tava jogando Stanley Parable, velho. Que porra é essa? Camborata. Já tá direto às duas portas ali. E se eu não pegar o balde? Será que muda alguma coisa?
The confusion and the chaos all seemed to melt away
Aí,
as
ó.
Stanley embraced the bucket.
É isso.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct?
Muito
Was this better
foda,
than
muito
the meeting room?
foda, mano.
Yes, no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else.
Adoro ele
The
falando.
cargo lift, yes. Good.
Said the bucket.
Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Tá, vamos seguir o que o balde tá falando.
Why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
Tá, vou seguir o que o balde falar pra eu
In
fazer.
here.
Said the bucket.
Go into this dark room over here.
Stanley once again obeyed blindly.
Não, sala escura não tem, só tem essa sala clara aqui. Ah, aqui.
Now pick up the phone.
Said the bucket.
Pick up the phone and it will take us back home where we can go about life together.
This is the sad story of a man named Stanley and his bucket. Once upon a time, I gave Stanley a bucket because I thought he was lonely and could use a friend. And then, very distressingly, he began to believe the bucket could speak to him.
O balde no sofazinho assistindo TV. Ai, que bonitinho. Olá, Stanley. Sou eu, seu balde. Pressione Z pra me levar ao trabalho com você. O balde tá falando comigo. Ele tá falando comigo, o balde. O baldinho, Z.
The Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket was merely meant to provide the comforting glow of companionship. It doesn't literally talk and give you orders.
Como não? Ele falou
Whatever
comigo.
Stanley is hearing the bucket say to him is just in his head.
Não. Ele fala comigo. O balde fala comigo. Aqui. Levar de volta pra casa comigo.
Lately, I've been concerned about him. Wouldn't you be concerned as well? To see him delusional like this, obsessing over an inanimate metal object?
Mas ele tá aqui na mesa comendo, almoçando.
Convince him. I don't know if he'll listen to me.
Ele tá almoçando aqui, o balde fala comigo, não é ilusão não. Aqui, ele tá comendo. Vai levar pro trabalho.
Oh, I'll try anyway. Stanley, can you hear me? Listen to me. It's just a bucket. It can't think, it can't talk.
Claro que
All it will
pode.
ever truly do for you is effectively transfer a liquid from one location to a different location.
Ele
That's
pode
it.
fazer mais coisas
Doesn't
sim.
do anything else.
Ele tá trabalhando aqui, ó. Olha ele trabalhando aqui. Não ouço o homem que fala alto. Pressione X pra voltarmos pra casa. É, eu não vou escutar o homem que fala alto.
You see, he's not listening. He's still taking orders from the bucket. You know, once upon a time it was me he took orders from. Me he trusted and listened to. Now all he cares about is his awful bucket. This
O balde é
stupid
incrível.
metal.
Para de falar do balde. Cadê o... Aí, ó, o balde tá fazendo janta. Ele é uma foda. Pressione O pra ignorar todos em sua vida, exceto eu. O.
It's sad, but I suppose he doesn't need me anymore. From now on, he's just going to cling to this bucket, this cold, empty bucket, this sort of shiny bucket.
Olha lá, ele tá trabalhando aqui, ó.
It does have a nice shine to
É, olha lá, ele é uma foda. Você acredita que sou real, não é, Stanley? Claro que sim! Eu tô segurando você, esse trabalho, a gente é incrível junto.
Yes, I suppose on closer inspection that it doesn't quite look like your average hardware store bucket. It's just a little more, what am I trying to say?
Olha lá, ele tá assistindo TVzinha.
Sturdier, more capable of transporting liquid.
Ele é
Like it would be
foda.
better at moving an amount of water from one room to another.
Pressione L para reviver esse mesmo dia comigo pra sempre.
Oh my God, what am I saying?
Olha lá, ó.
Better at carrying water from room to room. It's a bucket. It's literally just a bucket. Why do I feel some need to point out the ways in which it's so much more than just a regular bucket?
Ele é um balde muito foda. Pressione M para ir para casa, ao trabalho, para casa, ao trabalho, para casa.
Oh no. I'm having feelings for the bucket.
Mas o balde é foda.
No. What's going on?
Como assim sentimentos? Mas é normal ter sentimento por um balde.
Do anything it asks. What's wrong with me? I don't understand. Perhaps if I had the bucket, this would be less confusing.
Exatamente, você iria entender, o balde é incrível. Exato, você entendeu. O balde até arrumou a cama aqui, ó, colocou a luz de velas, tudo, tá lindo. Tá lindo o balde, tá lindo.
Stanley, give me the
Não,
bucket.
não,
Give
é
it to me.
meu, é
Give me
meu.
the bucket,
É
Stanley.
meu, me
I
solta.
need it. Give it
Me
to
solta,
now.
fecha os
Give it
olhos.
now.
Volte ao trabalho, Stanley. Caralho, mano, esse aí foi... Foda, esse foi foda. Foi pesado esse, foi pesado, foi pesado. Será que no 2, se eu fechar a porta...
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the
Ah,
pressure.
normal.
What if he had to make a decision? What if a
não
crucial
tá
outcome
tanto
fell
com
under
balde.
his responsibility? He had never been trained for that.
É.
No. This couldn't go anywhere except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself, is to wait. Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break me. In here I can be happy forever.
Normal, normal.
I will be happy. Stanley waited.
Não dá pra fechar a porta com o balde, porque assim que a gente sai da nossa sala, o balde... a sala fecha.
Gone by, he no longer had the ability to tell. But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited
O balde
long enough,
realmente
the
é muito bom.
answers would come. Eventually, someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end.
Ah, tem uma chance aleatória da porta ficar aberta.
He will be told
Puta,
what
mas é
to
foda,
do.
né?
Now it's just a little bit closer. Now it's even closer.
Tem como ficar começando de novo. Ih!
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
É, a porta
Stanley
fechou.
decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
É porque tem uns começos diferentes aleatórios, né, nesse jogo. Aí, ó. O final do quadro branco.
Spread through Stanley's arms.
Aí, boa.
With the bucket in his arms again, he was home.
Modo do cachorro! Ativei o modo do cachorro.
Stanley pressed the bucket upon every little thing in the office. Nothing responded to the bucket's touch, but it did little to discourage Stanley's belief in the magic of the bucket.
Magia do balde é incrível. Esse jogo, falaram que tem como, se eu fechar e abrir o jogo, acontece um negócio? Eu posso fechar, voltar pra área de trabalho e abrir de novo ele? Pra acontecer o negócio? Tá, vou sair e voltar pro menu. É isso? É isso, sai e volta pro menu? Porque aí vai sair do 2, eu acho, não vai? Vamos ver. Eu vou apertar. 3, 2, 1. Ah, e volta pra área de trabalho. Tá. E agora eu abro ele de novo. Inserir a hora atual. Ih, meu Deus do céu. Ih, ó, 4h20, moleque. Espere, espere. Antes de começarmos, posso dizer uma coisa? Obrigado por ter ajustado o relógio nas 2 vezes que você iniciou o jogo. Muitas pessoas não levam esse passo a sério, elas simplesmente deixam o relógio definido das 12, nem ligam pra isso. Mas você tá tomando o tempo necessário pra acertar o relógio, eu aprecio isso. Por causa disso, eu sei que você se importa com essa experiência, que você está prestando atenção. Eu nem tenho como saber se a hora que você definiu está correta. Sabe de uma coisa? Vou propor um acordo. Já que você cooperou tanto, da próxima vez que você iniciar o jogo e vir a essa tela, pode ajustar o relógio para sua hora favorita. Vai em frente, escolha a hora que quiser, mesmo que não seja a hora certa, você mereceu. Tudo bem, vou deixar você voltar pro jogo agora. Ah, que bonitinho. Ah, instalei Powerball 2. Era isso? Se eu reabrir o jogo e colocar o horário? É, ele tem como saber qual que é a hora certa, ele tem. Tem mais? Eu só inicio o jogo?
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Ah, tem várias coisas reabrindo várias
Stanley worked
vezes.
for a company in a big building.
Ah, tá. Eu peguei um achievement. Saia do jogo e comece de novo. A porta... não, a porta não ficou aberta.
What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to
Então, pera. Tem uma chance
all of his
da porta continuar aberta.
all of his all of his
É muito difícil, mano.
all of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Stanley picked up the bucket and smiled. He'd never be alone again, not truly alone, not with the bucket around. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered.
Então, basicamente, é Brasil com basicamente. Basicamente tem todos os finais do normal, só que com o balde. Isso. Ah, você pode achar todos eles? Eita. Terá uma recompensa por achar todos. Mentiras. Para de se enganar. Eu quero tanto eles. Eu quero ir pra casa. Ah lá, status de missão. Ah, ó, todos eles, ó, escadas. Alguma coisa a ver com escadas. Alguma coisa que é vermelha e azul. Um lugar que é privativo e mal cheiroso. De uma pessoa importante. Ah, no banheiro! No banheiro lá de cima tem. Boa sorte.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers. If I do, you can guarantee we be in here for hours.
Então,
But alas, no stickers.
não tem mais adesivo. Ah, não tem mais. Acabou o adesivo. Ah, tá bom.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
É aqui, ó.
I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanlerines and
Estatueta
Figures.
Status
What do you think,
Stanley. Não, o primeiro.
What name better encapsulates the intrinsic sense of happiness that you
Estatueta.
get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen go up by 1? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me.
Boa. Será que é diferente com o balde? É muito bom, porque você vai tentar tudo de novo, só que com o balde. Não, acho que é igual. Ele muda toda a existência. Não tem como a gente voltar, né? Não, fechou aqui já. A gente vai ter que fazer coisas aqui.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along?
Ele sabia.
Was the bucket guiding him?
Obrigado, balde. O balde é incrível.
This is certainly the most logical
Só que eu tô com medo do balde também ao mesmo tempo. Será que eu ficar subindo e descendo, só que com o balde, dá alguma coisa diferente?
The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Wait, Stanley said to the bucket. Can we go back up? When I was pressing those keypad buttons, there was something very intriguing about the number 3.
Eita.
I want to go back so I can try pressing the number 3 again. The bucket said nothing.
Yes! Eu quero apertar o 3.
Here we are, said Stanley. Now I'm going to try out that number 3 button. He took the bucket over to the keypad and began absolutely slamming on the number 3 over... Wow, he said. The number 3 is such a special button. I'm having the time of my life. Stanley looked expectantly at the bucket, but the bucket remained silent. This was a shock to Stanley, who had always felt such a connection with the bucket. How was this not as exciting to the bucket as it was to him?
É muito legal.
Once Stanley had had enough of the number 3, he got back in the elevator.
Tá, a gente voltou então. Mano, é muito bom, é muito bom.
Perhaps the bucket had missed something. Perhaps it had not seen how much joy Stanley got from slamming the
Meu
number
balde
3
tava piscando
repeatedly.
todas as vezes que eu apertei 3. Ele ficou piscando.
A hint of regret nagged in the back of Stanley's mind. Should he demonstrate the number 3 for the bucket again?
Por que você foi falar isso? Por que você foi falar isso? Por que ele foi falar isso?
No, no, said Stanley to the bucket. You can't go on yet. Not till you understand how much the number 3 means to me.
Ele falou, é culpa dele.
So much together.
A gente tem que mostrar o número 3 pro balde.
I see. Feel the happiness I feel. He smiled at the bucket, and the bucket said nothing.
Porra, o balde tá meio estranho ultimamente.
Here we go, said Stanley. This time I'll really show
Eu vou
you.
mostrar.
He ran to the number 3 and began to wail on it like a musician on a beloved instrument, weaving a concerto of truth and passion. He wielded the number 3 like a fine artist would wield a paintbrush. He told stories through the number 3, stories of his dreams and hopes and fears.
Caralho,
The whole
bonito.
time,
Foi tudo isso
he
mesmo.
looked to his bucket for a reaction of some kind. Anything to let him know that the bucket appreciated what he was doing. The bucket conveyed absolutely nothing at all, only silence.
Ah,
Crushed by a wave of dejection, Stanley returned. to the
cabisbaixo, cabisbaixo. Voltei cabisbaixo pro elevador.
Stanley and the bucket were so close. They'd always been there for one another.
Então.
Why suddenly could the bucket not connect with this passion
Então,
of
por quê?
Stanley's?
Por que do
The
nada?
question caused Stanley to ruminate the whole way down the
Do
elevator.
nada, ele tá meio estranho.
He knew that there must be a way to get through to the bucket, to communicate fully with his dear friend. Surely there was a solution, mustn't there be?
Uhum. Tem que ter um jeito. Mais uma vezinha. Mais uma vez, mais uma vez. A última, a última.
Ah, said Stanley. I know what to do. I know how to fully express this feeling in my heart. He decided right then and there that he would hold a press
Ah, eu
where he
não.
would speak to the public on all matters relating to pressing the number 3.
É isso, vai dar o mesmo.
He would elaborate
Só
fully
que agora é outra lore, por quê?
and why he felt so alive when pressing it. Then the bucket would be able to see his joy through the eyes of others. It would get to see the world react to this discovery of
Número 3,
Stanley's.
número 3 é
And
foda.
it would be through the public eye that the bucket would finally understand Stanley's work.
Aí, ó, deu o final.
For months, he advertised and marketed his press conference, building excitement around it, developing and rehearsing it, until it couldn't be refined a single measure further. When the big day arrived, Stanley was as prepared as he'd ever been for anything in his life.
Ah, aqui, ó. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. 3, 3, 3.
One last chance to win the bucket over. One opportunity to share a true connection with a loved one.
É isso, a gente tem que voltar a falar com o nosso amigão Balde, gente.
There was no one here. Nobody had come to the press conference to hear Stanley speak. To listen
Caralho!
to him talk about what it really means to press the number 3 on a keypad over and over. He was unloved, uninteresting, he was a failure. And in that moment, Stanley knew that the bucket would never again take him seriously. There would be no connection, no deeper understanding. The bucket merely sat there in his arms, indifferent. And so it began that slowly, over many years, the two of them grew more and more distant.
Nossa,
They
isso.
spoke less and less.
Realmente o
Neither
Balde tava
wishing to state
estranho.
the obvious, that any sense of real respect between them had eroded since that day at the press conference. There would be no more games, no more long conversations about passion and
A gente
pursuit.
terminou.
Only a silence that consumed the space between friends. And Stanley, having for once in his life discovered the warmth and comfort of true companionship, was cast back into the unremarkable normalcy of loneliness.
Foi triste esse aí, mano. Esse final foi tristão, mano.
Just a step through this door, Stanley thought to himself. That's all I need. If I can make it through this door, I can make it through them all.
Então, pelo que eu tô entendendo é... Se a gente não pegar o balde, a gente pode fazer os mesmos finais de sempre. Se a gente pegar o balde, a gente pode fazer esses finais, só que com o modifier. O modifier do balde, nosso amigão. Então, depende... O 2 nada mais é que isso. O 2 é o balde. Porque de resto é igual. O balde muda tudo. O balde duplicou o jogo inteiro.
The good old bucket. Just Stanley and the bucket, off on another thrilling adventure together. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
O bebê cresceu. Tá. Faltam 2. Escada, alguma coisa a ver com escada? Acho que tem que descer. Vamos descer a escada.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet.
Saco.
Simply because I have... Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the
Aqui.
boss's office.
Aqui!
You're getting close now, Stanley.
Yes.
You've nearly gotten all of the Figler and Marines.
Status da Liazinha.
And then the first number will equal the second number, and that will be it. We'll be different people by then. Different in the sense that we used to have none of them.
Só mais um,
And
só mais um.
now we have them all. You can't go back to when you had no Figler and Marines. None of us can.
Boa. A gente aproveita e continua aqui, né?
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy.
Tá, eu lembro desse final.
Bucket in his arms.
Não, não tinha balde.
He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance and wisdom for me.
Eu lembro disso aqui, mas não tinha balde, não.
He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance.
Ih, o balde tá estranhão mesmo, olha lá, ó.
Then Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from this. Who knows what sorts of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychological grounding presence of his
Qualquer outro balde.
Now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd. And now he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious,
No.
he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it.
Cadê meu balde?
Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him.
Stanley! Stanley,
tô
it's
preso.
me! The bucket!
Eu tô preso.
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next.
Tem
None of
balde.
them were his. None of them were his special bucket.
Come to me, Stanley!
Balde.
Me.
He
Balde.
had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And
Meu
then
balde, cadê ele?
he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along.
Dentro de mim.
It was incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away,
Oh,
she
balde.
knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is
sem balde é
predetermined
foda.
and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't even realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work. For which
Não
her
percam seus baldes, gente.
absolute
Anota.
guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself. My life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
Caralho. Mano, é muito doido que a adição de um balde deixou esse jogo. Realmente, é o 2. O que eu posso falar, gente? É o 2. É realmente o 2. Pode parecer meme, ser engraçadinho, mas não. É realmente 2. É o 2 mesmo.
All of his co-workers were gone.
Não é.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Where are we going today? The bucket asked. Stanley just
Ah.
smiled. Anywhere they went together would be perfectly fine with him.
Claro que sim. O balde é incrível.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be
Muito foda,
correct?
muito
Was
foda.
no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the
Não.
meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
Eu adoro.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Good.
Said the bucket.
Now ride the lift all the way to
Pula.
the top. There's something up.
But Stanley feared that any path he walked might lead to the separation of himself and the bucket, his dearest friend. So he threw himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms. How deeply touching.
Eu acho que ele fala outra coisa se ele falar.
All of his co-workers were gone.
Se ele falar que se eu pular tá tudo bem, ele fala.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room.
A good bucket, a strong bucket, a humble bucket, a committed bucket, a bucket
pular.
of culture.
Eu acho que tem que esperar.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest.
Vai lá,
This
vai lá,
was
vai lá.
not the correct way to the meeting room. But Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him.
Mano, pior que eu tô gostando muito desse balde.
Employee lounge
Mesmo
was
assim, eu tô gostando muito.
And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
É um bom balde.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the
Fazer
meeting
assim,
room.
ó.
Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
Oh, well, look who's got cold feet. Well,
That's
from
it.
here, it looks like the only way forward is down, since the lift won't be coming back, but that's okay. You've got a bucket.
Aí.
Did you know that buckets are routinely used as cushioning devices? It's true. You can fall on a bucket from literally any height and survive.
Sério?
Whoops. Looks like I was wrong. How clumsy of me.
É só isso. Ops.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Pular a janela com o balde. Por que pula a janela mesmo? É só...
The embrace of an old friend.
Mano, quantas falas tem esse jogo?
Stanley clung the bucket to his
Eu
cheek.
não lembro como que faz pra
Could
pular a
his
janela.
co-workers really all be gone?
É assim, né?
Yes, whispered the bucket into Stanley's ear.
Aí.
We've done it. We've escaped from that dull office and that pesky narrator. At last, out here in the white void, we are alone. Now, and for the first time, I can reveal to you my true self.
Eita!
The bucket began to tell Stanley of its life and its history, of the countless wars it witnessed,
Tá porra.
desecrating the land and lives of untold numbers of innocent humans, and the bucket's own complicity therein, of sadness and regret, and the many years it spent dwelling on the actions it might have taken to curb the madness and the decay, if only it had been stronger, of hope and redemption,
Tá
and its
porra.
crusade to uplift the stock of life for the common man, to manifest justice where none existed, and the bittersweet reality of time, to see one's dreams and wishes met halfway, meted out in parcels like charity, and abandoned as soon as the warm glow of inspiration begins to dim. The opportunities to do so much more. There was so much it could have done, perhaps, the bucket wondered to itself. Perhaps, if it had seen its own darkness with a clearer perception. This was way too much for Stanley.
What are you talking about?
He screamed.
You're a bucket.
Eita.
To this, the bucket furrowed its brow,
Não, ele não fez isso.
said the bucket.
Não.
Not since the evil wizard Gambhorata
Eita, Lade, falou!
snared me in his machinations as payback for the sacred amulet.
Mano, é verdade isso aí. A gente ouviu no outro áudio.
Young back then and could not conceive
É a
the
lore, é a lore.
No!
Stanley screamed even louder this time.
This is stupid! You are a bucket! This is so stupid! Why are we even doing
Eita
this?
porra.
As Stanley screamed and screamed and screamed, the bucket revealed its true form, transforming into a mighty beast of untold power, its fangs glistening like... My God, Stanley, you did it.
Não.
You saved us from the bucket.
O
Thank
balde.
God you already had all 12 emblems of sages and knew the incantations to summon their true power. Otherwise, we would have easily been
O
overwhelmed
balde,
by
ele,
the bucket's
ele ia
power.
matar todo
I'm
mundo.
speechless. You've demonstrated such bravery here today. Come, let's restart the game, and we'll agree to never again go trifling with this bucket, nor the dark magic cast away inside of it.
Ele ia matar todo mundo.
Stanley had never seen the office this brightly lit. Was it a sign of something? He hoped it was. He hoped very much that it was. The bucket made Stanley want to be a better man and a better co-worker. In time, perhaps, he would become both of those things.
Com certeza, com
Stanley
certeza.
clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The
Quero
bucket
fazer uma
was
coisa, quero
wrong.
fazer uma coisa.
Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room,
No,
said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift. Good,
Said the bucket.
Now ride the lift all the way to the top.
There's something up there I need you to
Quero
do.
cair nesse caminho
Stanley
aqui.
did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
Perigo em todo lugar. O que é aqui? Eu não lembro.
No, stop. Look there on the wall. You see, there's a sign right there. It says, no buckets past this point.
Não!
How could you think it was okay to bring the bucket here?
Mas por quê?
What if the problem is that you actually don't know what is a bucket?
Eu sei o que é um balde.
I suppose that would explain a lot about your behavior up to this point.
Eu,
Which, if that's true, well, my goodness, I think we have to do something about
eu
it.
sei o que é um balde.
This understanding could have dire consequences on the entire rest of the game
Por
if
quê?
not addressed quickly and properly.
Ele quer ver o que tem
The fact
aqui.
that the story is dependent on your understanding of what is and isn't a bucket. Please, step in here for a moment.
O que você vai fazer comigo? Ah. Pera. Isso é um balde?
Now then, I'm going to run you through some test scenarios,
Tá bom.
and you'll tell me whether or not the thing I'm showing you is a bucket.
Tá bom.
Simple enough, right? This should tell us everything we'll ever need to know about what is or is not a bucket.
Tá bom.
Okay, let's begin.
Vai. Oh!
Item 1. Is this a bucket?
Preciso olhar mais de perto, não dá. Preciso de outros ângulos. De costas. Sei. Mais ou menos. Acho que não.
Correct. It is a hologram of a bucket, not an actual bucket. Item 2. Is this a bucket?
Eita, pera. Preciso desenhar no ar um pouco. Eu preciso pensar num balde e olha pra ele. Pensa no balde, olha pra ele. Pensa num balde, olha pra ele. É um balde.
Incorrect. It is a 3D printed recreation of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
Vai se fudeu.
Item 3. Is this a bucket?
Eu acho que eu peidei. Não é um balde. Ah, né?
Incorrect. This is a bucket.
Filha da mãe!
Item 4. Is this a bucket?
Esse é. Esse é um balde, claramente, mano. Ah.
Are you hallucinating? This is a tractor.
Eu pensava que era um balde. Eu pensava que era um balde no formato.
How on earth did you manage to screw it up? Absolutely incredible.
Eu pensava
Let's
que...
just move on to
Eu
the
pensava
next.
que era um balde com formato de trator.
Is this a bucket?
Esse... Nossa, esse aqui... Esse aqui é. Esse aqui é. Agora é. Aí, ó.
This is a bucket.
Viu? Eu confundi os dois, gente. Era a rodinha, tava um pouco diferente.
Item 6. Is this a bucket?
Não, esse não é nem a pau, mano. Olha ali, ó, em cima. Olha ali em cima, ó. Aqui, ó. Tá vendo aqui, ó? Nesse espaço aqui, ó. Puta, não é nem a pau, mano.
Trick question. Both. Gotcha.
Como...
Item... Wait, hold on. I can't find the next one. Let me see. It should be around here somewhere.
Tá, eram os dois. Era o balde de Schrödinger. Ué? Não é um balde. Não é um balde.
Yes, thank you. There's nothing here.
Aí,
Of course it isn't a bucket. We both know full well that nothing isn't a bucket.
É, o nada...
When I say nothing isn't a bucket, that makes it sound like I'm saying everything is a bucket, which of course is not true.
Tudo é um balde?
Is that what you think?
Pode ser.
Answer me straight, Stanley. Are you trying to tell me that you believe everything is a bucket?
Sim.
You know what? I'm too confused to even sort it out. I've lost all sense of perspective. What is a bucket? What isn't a bucket?
Então,
Mere moments ago I could answer these questions.
vai, cadê o limiar? Cadê a linha que define?
Do any of us know what a bucket is? Am
Somos
I-
todos baldes. Hashtag. Sim.
Stanley, I can't keep doing this. I'm losing myself, and myself was all I ever had to begin with. I'm afraid the bucket is threatening to tear our relationship apart. I can't have that. I'm sorry. But I'm going to erase all buckets.
Não, não,
entirely.
não.
Okay. Here we
Não,
go.
não, não, não. Não.
What happened? Is everything gone?
Viu? Tudo é um balde. Por que tudo é um balde?
Was everything a bucket? Every single thing in the game was a bucket?
Exato.
My God, I had no idea. How could... Except me. I'm not a bucket after all. And you, Stanley, you're still here. You're not a bucket either. Oh, this is wonderful news. We're not buckets.
Mas eu queria ser.
Yes, I actually feel much more at ease right now. It's delightful to get some clarity on that issue. But it doesn't change the fact that we haven't got a
É, porque se
game.
deletou tudo.
Tell you what, I'll reset everything and we'll put back all of the buckets, okay? And we'll know that it's all a bucket. But if you run into anyone else, maybe don't mention that.
Tá.
Who knows what that information might do to a person?
Beleza,
All
beleza.
right, here we go.
Bom final. The Stanley Bucket. O balde de Stanley.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Not everyone is so lucky to have a bucket, but Stanley is a very lucky fellow. Very lucky indeed. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Fazer mais um final só, gente. Mais um final. Porque já tá tarde pra dedéu e esse jogo só vai puxando muito. Algum lugar que é vermelho e azul. Somewhere both red and blue. Aonde que é vermelho e azul? Que é o último lugarzinho.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley
Tá,
and the bucket
aqui embaixo.
walked upstairs to the boss's office.
É o do carro, né? É, que tem que sair voando. É, eu vou jogar o resto amanhã hoje. Amanhã hoje eu jogo o resto.
Stepping in
Eu vou no escape ali.
Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Não, mas depois a gente pega esse último bonequinho também, a gente vai descobrindo todas as coisas. Só sei, tipo, a melhor coisa é você já ter ideia do que você já fez ou não fez,
Stanley and the bucket
fazer outra
walked
coisa.
ahead through
Ali
a
eu sei que tem uma outra coisa pra fazer, mas vamos no escape
mind
aqui.
control facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley and the bucket would both meet a violent death.
Ah, eu quero morte bem violenta. Bem violenta, eu quero.
The door behind them was not shut. Stanley and the bucket still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Nah.
At this point, Stanley and the bucket were knowingly walking forward into a very painful death for each of them.
É isso mesmo, eu quero. Eu adoro uma morte bem violenta e dolorosa. Ixi. Balde, segura minha mão. Eu lembro disso aqui. Só que eu não tava com balde. Eu tenho que fazer um
As the
negócio,
machine
né?
whirred into motion and Stanley and the bucket inched closer to their demise, Stanley reflected on how meaningless the bucket's warmth and comfort had turned out to be. To be sure, it puts the mind and the soul at ease to embrace the bucket, but what use is a sense of ease when you're about to be crushed to death? This is what Stanley thought to himself, and he sort of kicked himself for wasting so much time carrying a bucket everywhere. Farewell, Stanley.
Não!
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator,
Eita.
as Stanley and the bucket were led helplessly into the enormous metal
Eu
jaws.
adoro. And the
In a
bucket.
single
E o
visceral
balde.
instant, the bucket's life came to an end as it was crushed violently to death.
E o balde. A narradora do narrador. Ué, cadê o 2?
It was a shame, the death of such a magnificent bucket. It's true that all buckets are radiant in their own way, but this one stood above the rest. It was a glorious bucket to
Não, nem a
behold.
pau. Nem a pau. Vai falar sobre o balde. O balde. Dá as boas-vindas à grande exposição. Você se encontra à beira do abismo do conhecimento. Assim como um balde, a mente humana geralmente está vazia por dentro. Um vazio cavernoso. Mas por meio da exposição diante de você, a mente pode se tornar plena, enriquecida e fundamentada. O conhecimento do balde e sua história é o único conhecimento verdadeiro que realmente possuímos. Você vai levar consigo o que aprender aqui para o mundo? Você vai aceitar com a mente aberta o que pode ser desafiador sobre as informações dessa exposição? Você vai mudar sua vida e de seus entes queridos como consequência dessa exposição, ou vai fechar os olhos e continuar a viver como antes, na ignorância e na escuridão? O balde. Mano, o balde é incrível. Tô amando. Olha o balde ali. Oh, é isso.
See how arrogant it was for Stanley to take a bucket like this and to claim it for his own. Can you see the hubris that blinded him? Can you see that the bucket is far more noble than Stanley will ever be in his short life?
Oh, que jogo foda. Vai se fuder, mano. Vai se tomar. Oh, na boa, é todos os finais do primeiro. Só que é tudo transformado. A porra do balde, sempre, de novo e de novo. 25 baldes, uma fotografia de 25 baldes. Tem muito mais do que isso. O maior número de baldes já capturado por uma câmera. O fotógrafo sofreu um choque catatônico em virtude da euforia causada por ter sido exposto a tantos baldes ao mesmo tempo. Ai, mano, isso é lindo. Isso é lindo. Um balde com 2 alças. Eita porra, tem 2 alças. Caralho. Esse balde é ilustrado apresentando 2 alças. Tal conceito nunca foi criado na vida real, tendo sido considerado perigoso demais e irresponsavelmente experimental. Todos os anos, dezenas são condenados à morte apenas por tentar produzi-lo. Tá porra, o balde com 2 alças. Oh, na boa, eu tô em êxtase. Olha, um balde de madeira. O balde do inferno. Uma réplica do balde do inferno, que na Idade Média era tão cobiçado por causa do fascínio que causava, que levou dezenas de nações a entrarem em guerra para obter seu controle. Bilhões morreram, e apesar de tudo, esse simples fato permanece irrefutável. Ninguém é capaz de controlar o balde. Mano, o balde do inferno. Bilhões! O balde anti-estresse. O balde estressado. The Stress Bucket. O balde do estresse, né? No caso aqui tá anti-estresse. Apresentado sem comentários. Preocupações, coisas negativas, pensamentos negativos, falta de segurança, vulnerabilidade igual tamanho e força do balde. Estresse igual o level de água no balde. Você liga e sai coisas boas do balde. É o balde, não tem como não, mano. Nem a... Olha. Foi assim que descobriram o balde. Tava tendo um gotejamento. Aí falaram, e se a gente deixar o balde ali? Desenho rupestre. Embora saibamos que os baldes são anteriores à existência da humanidade, não sabemos quanto tempo antes eles surgiram. Esse desenho rupestre mostra as primeiras descobertas dos usos práticos de um balde pelo homem primitivo, época em que o balde provavelmente já existia há vários milênios. Observe nesses desenhos como o balde permite ser usado, julgando a humanidade digna de seus tesouros. Mano, o balde, velho. Aqui, ó, também. Gamborata! Eles estão falando Gamborata de novo, mano. Ou tem uma lore muito pesada do balde nesse jogo.
No man can own a bucket, and certainly not a bucket as dazzling to behold as this one. It is man who should kneel before the bucket.
Eita. Gamborata. O balde pendurado. Essa peça simboliza a relação necessária entre balde e humanidade. Por mais clara que seja a nossa compreensão do balde, sempre há mais conhecimento que permanece além do nosso alcance. Essa distância, inevitavelmente, é para o nosso próprio bem. Ah, pra gente não pegar o balde. E aí a gente vai ter que ir lá. Eu vou tentar pegar o balde. Ah, não. Eu consigo pegar. Peguei. Eu peguei o balde.
There is something we can do together, you and I, that will right this terrible wrong.
Eita.
Let Stanley die. Let him be crushed by the machine.
Não!
Don't reset the game. Don't give him another opportunity to run off with another beautiful bucket. We can save the world's buckets from their treatment as tools and implements if only we let Stanley die together. The bucket shall take its place as ruler, as leader, as commander of a new world, a new vision for...
Chutamos o balde. Oh, que da hora que tudo transforma em balde de novo e de novo. Eu tô amando isso aqui, mano. Tanto quanto o primeiro. Eu tô... Deu a alegria novamente de jogar Stanley Parable. Por hoje é isso. A gente continua na próxima. Abre o jogo de novo só pra ver. Vamos lá. Vou abrir de novo só pra ver o que acontece. Lembrando, gente, se vocês não viram o primeiro Stanley Parable, tá lá no... Deixa eu colocar aqui. Vou colocar minha hora favorita. Vou colocar 11:11. Vamos ver. Assiste lá. É só colocar Felps Stanley Parable, que você vê a primeira série, que eu fiz todos os finais do Stanley Parable original. E aí eu vou revisitar esses finais com o balde, que muda tudo, né? 11:11, sua hora favorita do dia. Ou você simplesmente não conseguiu resistir, me deu a hora certa de novo. Afinal de contas, eu bem sei o quanto você gostaria de definir a hora da forma certa. Ok, agora estou curioso para saber o nível de precisão da hora 11:11. Vamos usar outro controle deslizante para descobrir. Qual é a precisão da hora 11:11? De imprecisa para precisa. Eu vou deixar aqui. Tá bem precisa. Sabe, só queria dizer que, independentemente da precisão do relógio, estou me divertindo muito ajustando essas configurações. Tenho a impressão que estou aprendendo mais sobre você e sobre suas preferências de configuração. É bom coletar dados. Eu adoraria que tivéssemos mais controles deslizantes, mas já passamos por todos eles. Talvez eu possa inventar novos controles deslizantes para coletar novos dados sobre você. Não deve ser tão difícil. É isso, eu vou criar alguns novos. Eles devem estar prontos na próxima vez que você iniciar o jogo. E não vai ser hoje, gente. No próximo episódio aqui, na próxima vez que eu for jogar Stanley Parable 2, a gente vê os controles deslizantes novos, tá? Tá sendo incrível. Amanhã a gente joga mais. A gente vê se a gente consegue jogar bastantão, muitos finais aqui conosco. Para conosco. Valeu demais. Só vamos que vamos. Foda. Oh, muito foda, mano. O Stanley Parable normal... Deixa eu ver. O Stanley Parable normal, eu tenho 8,9 horas, mas 4 dessas 8,9 horas foi o Nenê. Então, dá cerca de, sei lá, 5 horas de jogo, por aí, 4 horas e meia. E nesse novo, eu já tô com 4 horas. Já tô com 4 horas isso aqui. Aí tem aqui as conquistas. Clique na porta 435 vezes. A conquista 8888888888 é uma conquista que é achievement de teste, ignore ele. O speedrun, que é completar o Stanley Parable em menos de 4 minutos e 22 segundos, não incluindo tempo de carregamento. Ai meu Deus, peraí. Tem também... vai muito lá pra fora, brincar lá fora, tocar na grama. Não jogue esse Stanley Parable novo durante 10 anos. E aí também tem Commitment, que é jogar Stanley Parable na duração inteira de uma terça-feira. Uma terça-feira inteira jogando Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. Eu só não sei se é a duração de uma terça-feira em qualquer dia ou tem que ser terça-feira. Não sei. Mas... beleza. É isso por hoje, gente. Esse jogo tá sendo muito foda. Quero muito continuar hoje. Vendo as outras coisas que tem. Mas eu acho que certas coisas a gente já deu uma passada rapidona.